Welcome to Faint Echoes, where history drifts gently through time, softly unraveling in the quiet hours of your evening. Before we begin tonight's journey, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from? Whether you're curled up in Lagos, drifting off in Vancouver, or relaxing under the stars in Kyoto, let me know. You're part of a growing circle of quiet minds who find comfort in the past. Now, take a deep breath, let the day slip away, and come with me into the silent, sand-swept corridors of ancient Egypt. Tonight's story is not about the pharaohs. It is not about the golden masks or towering pyramids. It is about those who served, quietly, faithfully, and often without leaving a name behind. The title of this journey is What It Was Really Like to Be a Pharaoh's Servant in Ancient Egypt. And by the end of this story, I hope you'll not only feel immersed in their world, but more at peace in your own. Let's begin. Imagine it. The air is already warm before the sun has even risen above the Nile. You stir awake on a mat of woven reeds, inside a clay-walled dwelling nestled among dozens just like it, small, square, sunbaked. The scent of dust and ash clings to the room from the communal fire that smoldered low through the night. You are a servant, a palace worker, one among hundreds. And today, like most days, you will rise before your masters, because your work begins when the world is still hushed. You splash water on your face from a worn clay pot. It's cool and refreshing, though gritty, water drawn from the canal at dusk. A bite of coarse bread, a few olives, and you're off, bare feet pressed into warm sand, walking in the early light toward the great stone complex that rules your waking life. Your name won't be remembered, but your hands will help carry the memory of kings. Your first task? Brickmaking. And not the kind you think of when you imagine solid masonry. No, these are sun-baked mud bricks. You mix Nile silt with chopped straw and your own feet, walking through the heavy mixture until it thickens. The smell is pungent, rot, and wet earth, but it clings to life, just like you do. The foreman watches from beneath a linen wrap, silent, stone-faced. You mold the bricks in wooden forms, one after another. Kneel, scoop, press, repeat. The sun climbs. Your skin darkens under it. Your back begins to ache, but the rhythm is steady, like breath, like time itself. Later in the day, you're called to the temple. The inner sanctuary must be swept. Not a grain of sand may remain on the polished limestone. You carry a bundle of reed brushes and gently sweep in long, careful strokes, barely letting your sandals whisper across the sacred floor. There's a scent here, always. Frankincense and myrrh, burnt in steady offerings to the gods, but mixed with it is the musty odor of stone, warmed by centuries of breathless reverence. Another worker is grinding resin for incense, stone against stone, a slow, gritty sound that fills the hall like a chant. Sometimes you're given the task of grinding it yourself. You kneel over the basalt bowl, pressing the pestle in circular motion. It's meditative. The sharp, spicy aroma creeps into your skin. Your hands always smell of it. At midday, you might be sent to the Nile banks, not for leisure, but to haul bundles of papyrus stalks, or carry water back to the kitchens. The sun is brutal now. Your linen tunic clings to your back, damp with sweat. Flies buzz. Your stomach tightens with hunger, but you press on. You aren't a slave, but neither are you free. Your family might have served this house for generations. Service is a kind of inheritance. In the kitchen courtyard, another servant is pounding barley with a wooden pestle, rhythmically thumping it into a wide clay basin. A cook barks instructions. Flatbread is slapped onto the hot dome of a baking stone. Lentils boil in wide pots. If you're lucky, a scrap will be saved for you. And when the day ends, as shadows lengthen and the sandstone glows with the orange of fading light, you walk back, slowly, tired. There are no rewards, no applause, just the quiet satisfaction of having served well. The stars come out one by one, brilliant in the dry Egyptian sky. You lie on your mat, the scent of smoke and sweat still clinging to your tunic. You close your eyes, and tomorrow it will begin again. The quiet power of Hatshepsut, and the silence that followed. Now that you've walked the quiet, dusty path of a servant, let us shift our gaze upward, to the very top, to someone whose name did echo through stone halls, someone whose presence was carved in towering reliefs, only to be methodically erased. Let's drift back further in time, to the early 15th century BCE, to the reign of one of Egypt's most fascinating and most forgotten rulers, a woman who became king. Her name was Hatshepsut. Close your eyes. Imagine the great temple at Deir el-Bahari. It rises from the cliffs of the Theban desert like a stepped mirage, pale, symmetrical, impossibly elegant, columns as tall as trees, ramps ascending through sunlight and shadow, and at its heart, her name once rang out, Hatshepsut, daughter of Amun. But who was she, really? She was born a royal daughter during the reign of Thutmose I, and like many high-born children, she would have been raised in a world of ritual, ceremony, and intense expectation. She likely learned to read early, a privilege few Egyptians ever gained. She would have been trained in formal speech, temple rites, and the reading of sacred texts, but her fate was not to be merely the wife of a pharaoh. Instead, she became one. When her father died, the throne passed to Thutmose II, her half-brother, and later her husband. Their union was political, customary, calculated, but Thutmose II died young, leaving behind an infant son from another wife, Thutmose III. And that's when Hatshepsut stepped forward. Officially, she was regent, ruling on behalf of the child king. But gradually, subtly, she became more. She adopted full royal titulary. She was referred to not as queen, but as Pharaoh. She wore the false beard of kingship, the headdress, the kilt. She stood beside gods in temple carvings, and in her inscriptions she was His Majesty, not Her Grace. Imagine the careful control of language, the deliberate crafting of image and role. She was rewriting the rules without ever announcing the revolution. During her reign, Egypt prospered. Monuments rose, trade routes flourished. One of her most famous achievements was the expedition to the land of Punt, a mysterious kingdom to the south, rich in incense trees, ebony and gold. Ships were sent, diplomats traveled, exotic goods returned. The reliefs at Deir el-Bahari show scenes from the voyage. Tall incense trees carried in baskets, strange animals, foreign princes offering tribute. It was more than commerce. It was legitimacy, divine favor demonstrated through bounty. But legitimacy is a fragile thing. When Hatshepsut died, around the 22nd year of her reign, her stepson, Thutmose III, finally took full control. And then, a slow, methodical erasure began. Her name was chiseled out of inscriptions, her images defaced, her statues toppled or hidden. Even in her own mortuary temple, her likenesses were scraped away, and new reliefs carved in their place. This wasn't rage, it wasn't swift destruction, it was administrative. It was the silence of bureaucracy humming steadily through stone. It was not meant to humiliate her, it was meant to unwrite her, to smooth the historical record, to close the gap, as though a female king had never stood at all. And yet, she remained, buried in the Valley of the Kings, her temple still standing, elegant and patient, her memory, like faint echoes in the dusk, resurfaced centuries later. In the modern era, archaeologists uncovered inscriptions that had escaped destruction. Scholars puzzled together fragments of her reign, and once more her name was spoken aloud. So what was it really like to be Hatshepsut? It was to wear the garments of power, in a world that had no words for a woman who ruled alone. It was to navigate tradition with precision, to cloak ambition in piety, to build legacy in stone, and it was to vanish, but not entirely, not forever. The wind still moves through her temple, and if you listen closely, with ears quiet enough, you might still hear her footsteps in the colonnade. We leave behind the sunlight gleaming on sandstone temples, and descend once more into the quiet dark of the earth. Imagine now a passageway, cool and narrow. Its walls of crumbling limestone breathe a stale air, long trapped, long forgotten. Your footsteps echo softly against the rough floor. Torches flicker and cast strange shadows across faint painted hieroglyphs. And deeper still, corridors stretch into blackness like arms, reaching for something just beyond knowing. Welcome to KV5. This is no ordinary tomb. This is a riddle carved in stone. A vast, sprawling network beneath the cliffs of the Valley of the Kings, the largest royal tomb ever discovered in Egypt. And for a long time, no one knew what truly lay within. KV5 was first noted in the 1820s. An unassuming shaft, a dusty doorway, a forgotten name on a map. Explorers peered in. They saw a few rooms, partially filled with rubble, and assumed it was unremarkable. For over 150 years, it slept undisturbed. Then in the 1990s, something changed. An archaeologist named Kent Weeks, working with the Theban Mapping Project, reopened KV5 with modern tools and fresh curiosity. He thought it might be larger than it seemed, and he was right. What they found was astonishing. Room after room, corridor after corridor. Not 5, not 10, but over 120 chambers. Some so narrow a man could barely pass through. Others grand, with carved pillars and faded wall seams. and beyond, sealed passages still unopened, stretching into the mountain. But who were all these chambers for? The answer, slowly revealed in cartouches and fragments, was this: the sons of Ramesses II. You may know Ramesses, often dubbed Ramesses the Great, as one of Egypt's most powerful pharaohs. He ruled for nearly 70 years. He built colossal statues of himself. He fought the Hittites. He carved his legacy into nearly every stone in Egypt, and he fathered many children. Estimates range widely, but ancient records suggest he had over 50 sons, and likely as many daughters. Some say over 100 in total. Imagine now the life of those sons. Princes raised in splendor, but rarely destined for the throne. Many served as priests, generals, or administrators. They lived in their father's long shadow, and when they died, they were brought here, to KV5, not all at once, not in grandeur, but in a slow procession across years. Their tomb was communal, a subterranean palace of the forgotten royal bloodline. Names were found: Amun-Her-Khepeshef, Ramesses B. Sether-Khepeshef, all sons, all buried here. But many names remain lost. Many chambers are anonymous, their inscriptions rubbed smooth by time and moisture. Imagine the sorrow of a mother, unnamed, watching her princely son entombed beneath a stone ceiling in a chamber already claimed by brothers before him. Imagine the silence that followed each burial. A door sealed, a name whispered, and then forgotten. Archaeologists also found pottery, shards of sarcophagi, even small statues, shabtis, meant to serve the dead in the afterlife. But no complete mummies. Most of the tomb had been robbed, long, long ago, perhaps in antiquity, perhaps by the desperate hands of workers during a famine. There is no drama here, no curses, no gold, only the stillness of layered dust, and a mystery of who they were, how they lived, and how they died. What did the sons of Ramesses speak of in life? Did they envy one another? Did they resent the old man who outlived so many of them? Or did they find joy in festivals, in hunts along the Nile, in duties at the great temples of Thebes? We do not know, but their chambers remain, and each one, carved with care, reminds us that even in the most powerful dynasties, oblivion is always waiting, just beneath the rock. Let that stillness settle for a moment. Let it linger, as it has lingered for centuries. And now we return once more to the surface, not to the fields or the mud-brick villages, but to the high palace walls, where power sat on golden thrones. In our final segment, we will spend a quiet day in the presence of Egypt's elite, and glimpse what it was like for those who wore linen and gold, while others toiled in dust and silence. A day in the palace, gold, linen, papyrus scrolls, and the whispers of priests. You may open your eyes again to the golden haze of morning light. Not in the servants' quarters now, not in a mud-brick village, but within walls that shimmer faintly in the sunlight, coated with white plaster, polished smooth. This is the palace. Perhaps it stands in Thebes, nestled close to the banks of the Nile, where palm trees rustle and sacred ibises stalk the reeds. Or perhaps it lies further north, closer to the heart of power during the reign of Hatshepsut or Ramesses. But wherever it is, its halls breathe a different air. Let us walk softly here. The floors are swept clean of dust. Matting has been laid. The scent is no longer river rot and sweat, but of fresh-cut lotus and myrrh. Servants pass in silence, carrying bronze jugs of cool water or bowls of figs and honey. And in the inner chamber, the prince, or perhaps the Pharaoh himself, is being dressed, not in ragged linen, but in fine pleated robes that shimmer faintly. Gold beads are arranged across the chest, heavy with meaning and metal. Kohl is gently brushed beneath the eyes, not as ornament, but as protection against the glare of Ra, the sun god. He sits on a low stool carved from sycamore. Before him, a polished copper mirror. Beside him, a scribe reads softly, a report from the Delta, where barley prices have shifted. The morning is slow, deliberate. No one rushes here. The rhythm of life in the palace is dictated not by hunger or heat, but by ritual and role. Every action, from bathing to prayer, unfolds in time-honored steps. And now, we follow a young bureaucrat, a mid-ranking official. His robes are of fine linen, but without embroidery. His sandals are well made, though dust clings to the soles. His day begins with a scroll. Not papyrus fresh from the scribe's workshop, but one copied long ago. It is a list of the day's names and duties, which temple requires tribute, which foreign messenger awaits translation, which noble woman has requested grain be sent to her estates during the inundation. He does not rule, but he arranges the world for those who do. In the cool hall of records, he consults with others. They sit cross-legged, papyrus spread between them. The air smells of ink, sharp and earthy, and beeswax used to seal scrolls. Occasionally a priest enters. The priests move differently. They are quiet, robed, deliberate. Their voices carry both reverence and weight. They may be whispering about the condition of the Apis bull, a living god on earth, or about signs in the stars noted from atop temple walls. Knowledge in Egypt is layered, secular and sacred, and often intertwined. And then there are the walls. Imagine yourself standing in a great audience chamber. The roof is high. Columns rise like papyrus stalks, painted in green and blue. Scenes of battles and offerings decorate the walls. Gods towering over pharaohs, enemies kneeling in submission. But you know that these walls were painted by hands like those of the servant we met earlier, and that the scribe, brushing ink now onto papyrus, was once a student, the son of a worker perhaps, chosen for his quick mind and steady hand. The palace is built not just from stone, but from people. Let us pause now and listen to the silence, not true silence, but the soft patter of sandals, the rustle of linen, the low murmur of voices behind reed curtains, and beyond the walls, the ever-present hum of Egypt, the Nile, the wind through sycamores, the occasional bray of a donkey in the distant fields. In this moment, contrast becomes clear. Inside the palace, cool, measured control. Outside, heat, dust, uncertainty. Inside, gold glinting on rings and sandals. Outside, cracked heels, calloused hands, yet both worlds are Egypt. And in truth, the boundary between them is not as solid as stone might suggest. A servant might rise, a priest might fall, a scribe's son might one day rule, or vanish into the sand, unnamed. And so the rhythms continue, as they have for centuries, as they did for every servant and prince, for every worker and god-king. Now, as we begin to draw this journey to a close, let us reflect on these layers of life, from the brickmakers in the burning sun, to the courtiers brushing ink across sacred scrolls. Each breath, each step, each offering was a note in Egypt's ancient echo. And now, our long journey through sand and silence comes softly to a close. You've walked beside the ones who lived not beneath crowns, but beneath the weight of baskets, scrolls, and sun. You've glimpsed Egypt not as gold and monument, but as toil, breath, incense, and quiet prayers murmured between shifts of labor. You've seen the servant's hand press brick into desert heat. You've watched incense curl into sacred halls, felt linen stick to sun-warmed skin, and heard the soft turn of a papyrus scroll in the still air of a palace chamber. All of it, part of one great rhythm, the rhythm of their lives, a rhythm that pulsed beneath the clamor of kings and the grandeur of tombs, the rhythm that continues even now, echoing faintly beneath the surface of time. So as your breath slows, as your thoughts begin to drift like silt along the Nile, know this: the grandeur of the pyramids was never built by gods. It was shaped by calloused hands, by feet worn raw, by people like you. And not so unlike those we live among today. There is peace in knowing this, that history, for all its splendor, rests upon the simple, sacred rituals of the ordinary, of service, of patience, of quietly enduring what must be endured. So let the past cradle you now. Let the ancient rhythms quiet your mind. The Nile flows still. The stars wheel slowly above desert hills. And somewhere, in a palace now lost to time, a scribe finishes his scroll by the light of an oil lamp. He sets down his reed pen and listens to the silence. Sleep well, and thank you for listening to Faint Echoes.